The door closed behind me with a sound I'll never forget. It wasn't just wood slamming shut, it was every bridge I thought I had burning down. 18 years old. No family. No money. Just a cracked phone, a backpack, and a storm inside me. I walked for hours that night. The street lights were my only company. Every time I passed the house, I wondered what it felt like to belong somewhere, to have people who wanted you to come home. But I didn't have that anymore. At first I hated them. My parents. Their faces when they said those words, "You'll never become anyone." It played in my head like a broken record. I wanted to prove them wrong so badly it hurt. But hate doesn't fill your stomach. And anger doesn't pay for food. That first night I slept at a bus stop. My hoodie wasn't warm enough and the wind cut through me like knives. By morning I was shaking not just from the cold, but from the realization that this was my life now. The world doesn't care about your pain. It doesn't stop for you to catch your breath. So I decided I wouldn't stop either. By day 2, I was walking into every small store, cafe, and gas station I could find, asking for a job. Any job. Experience? No. Age? 18. Come back when you're older. The same line again and again. By the end of the day, I had $1 in my pocket, a crumpled bill someone gave me out of pity when I helped them carry groceries. That night, I sat on a park bench, staring at that dollar and whispered to myself, this is where it starts. Not with a plan. Not with a handout. But with a choice, to fight. The next morning, I walked into a construction site. I told the foreman I'd work for free the first day, just to prove myself. He looked me up and down. Dirty hoodie. Tired eyes. Empty hands. You won't last an hour, he said. Then you lose nothing, I replied. He smirked. Fine. Grab a shovel. That first day nearly broke me. My hands bled, my legs felt like they'd collapse, and the workers laughed at me behind my back. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. When the sun went down, the foreman walked over. You came back tomorrow, he said. You get paid. It wasn't much, but it was something. For the first time in my life, I earned money with my own hands. Not from luck, not from help, but from refusing to quit. I took that small pay, bought a meal, and saved the rest. It wasn't about comfort anymore. It was about building something no one could take from me again. Every morning I woke up before sunrise. Every night I came home covered in dirt and sweat. And every time I wanted to quit, I heard my father's voice in my head. You'll never become anyone. So I lifted heavier, worked longer, learned faster. They didn't know it, but their words became my motivation. Weeks turned into months. The pay was still small, but I was no longer hungry. I rented a shared room with 2 other guys who were just as broke as me, but we shared something stronger than money. Hunger. Not for food. For change. At night, while the others slept, I'd stay awake scrolling through my old cracked phone, watching videos about business, construction, and self-improvement. I didn't even have Wi-Fi. I used free connections outside cafes just to learn something new every night. Every bit of knowledge felt like a weapon. Every small step forward felt like revenge. One evening, after nearly 6 months of working, the foreman called me over. You've got drive, kid, he said. I'm opening another project. Want in? It meant more hours, better pay, but also risk. If I failed, I'd lose everything again. But I looked at my bruised hands and remembered where I started, at that cold bus stop. I nodded. I'm in. That job changed everything. I wasn't just digging holes anymore. I was learning how projects ran, how budgets worked, how people managed teams. And slowly the idea formed in my mind. One day I won't just work for someone. I'll own this. It sounded crazy back then. But I'd already lived through worse than crazy. By the time I turned 20, I'd saved enough to rent my own place, small but mine. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want to. I wanted them to hear about me, not from me. Every dollar I made after that went into learning and investing. Online courses, tools, anything to grow. I stopped chasing comfort and started chasing growth. 1 year later, I registered my own small construction service. Just me, 2 friends, and a beat-up van we bought secondhand. We worked weekends, nights, holidays. No breaks. No excuses. And slowly, very slowly, the calls started coming. People didn't care about my past. They cared that I showed up and did the work no one else wanted to. 3 years after being thrown out of my home, I stood in front of my first company sign. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. And as I ran my hand across the logo, I whispered, I told you I'd make it. That was the day I realized, success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The hate, the doubt, the pain, it all became fuel. Because sometimes, you have to lose everything to build something greater. And I wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning. 3 years after I started my company, I bought my first real office. It was small, just 2 rooms, cracked walls, and a buzzing old air conditioner, but it was mine. From that moment, every sunrise felt like a victory. I had 5 employees, 3 old vans, and more projects than we could handle. I wasn't rich yet, but I was free. And that freedom tasted better than anything I'd ever known. Every morning, I'd walk through the site with a cup of coffee in hand, watching my team work. They laughed, shouted, argued, but they believed in what we were doing. And I made sure they got paid fairly because I knew what it was like to have nothing. Still, deep inside, there was something that wouldn't let me rest. That voice. My father's voice. You'll never become anyone. I thought I buried it. But success doesn't silence your demons, it just gives them a nicer echo. One Friday afternoon, as I was checking invoices, I got a call. Unknown number. Hello. Silence for a moment. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 4 years. Son. I froze. It was him. My father. The same man who threw me out like trash when I was 18. For a second I couldn't speak. My heart was pounding like I was back in that freezing night again. He cleared his throat. Your mother, she's been asking about you. We heard you're doing well. Those words hit me harder than I expected. We heard you're doing well. No apology. No regret. Just curiosity. I wanted to hang up. But something in me said, no, not yet. So I replied calmly, yeah, doing all right. He hesitated. Maybe you could visit sometime. Your mother would like that. I looked around my office. My team laughing in the next room. The company name on the wall. And then I realized they didn't call because they cared. They called because they finally saw me. I'll think about it, I said and ended the call. That night I couldn't sleep. All the memories came flooding back. The shouting, the disappointment, the cold. I remembered the exact words my father said that night when he kicked me out. You're nothing but a burden. Get out and don't come back until you've done something with your life. And now, suddenly, I'd done something. And they wanted me back. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But peace doesn't come from pretending. It comes from facing what broke you. So, I got in my truck and drove back to the town I swore I'd never return to. It looked smaller than I remembered. Same streets. Same houses. Same feeling of being unwanted. When I pulled up to my parents' old house, my chest tightened. I sat in the car for 5 full minutes before stepping out. The door opened slowly and there she was. My mother. Her hair was grayer now, her eyes softer. For a moment we just stared at each other, both unsure what to say. Then she whispered, "You came back," and hugged me before I could say a word. It felt strange, familiar and foreign at the same time. From the hallway I heard footsteps. My father appeared. He looked older, smaller, like the years had finally caught up to him. His eyes met mine, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You proved me wrong." I wanted to feel proud. I wanted to feel satisfaction. But all I felt was emptiness. Because the truth was, I hadn't built my life for him. I built it in spite of him. And in that moment, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about letting them back into my life. It was about freeing myself from the weight of their words. So I said, yeah, I guess I did. Then I sat down at the table and for the first time in years we talked about life, about work, about everything in between. There were no tears. No apologies. Just understanding. And somehow that was enough. When I drove back home that night, I rolled down the window and let the wind hit my face. It felt different this time, cleaner, lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from my past. I was running toward my future. Over the next few years, my business exploded. We expanded to multiple cities. I hired people who'd been in the same position I once was, homeless, jobless, desperate for a chance. I made it my mission to be the person I needed when I was 18. And the more I gave, the more I grew. Because when you lift others, you rise higher yourself. One evening, I was invited to speak at a local event, Young Entrepreneurs of the Year. It felt surreal. As I stood on that stage, lights shining in my eyes, I looked out at the crowd, hundreds of faces, some eager, some doubtful, all searching for hope. I took a breath and said, 4 years ago, I slept on a bus stop bench. My parents called me a failure. Everyone said I'd never make it. But here's what I learned. It's not about where you start. It's about refusing to stay there. The crowd went silent. Then I smiled and added, You don't need support to start. You just need pain strong enough to push you forward. Applause. Real loud, honest applause. And at that moment I felt something I hadn't felt before. Not pride. Not revenge. A few months later, my father came to visit me at the office. He stood there looking at the workers, the vans, the building, everything I'd built. Then he said softly, "I was wrong." This time those words didn't sting. They healed. I smiled and said, "It's okay." I needed to hear it back then, because without that, I might not have fought so hard. He nodded, eyes glistening. And for the first time I saw him not as the man who broke me, but as the man who unknowingly built my strength. That night I sat alone in the office looking out at the city lights. And I realized something profound. We all have people who doubt us, hurt us, abandon us. But those people don't define us. Our response does. I whispered to myself. Maybe they didn't believe in me, but I learned to believe in myself. And that was enough. Because success, real success, isn't about proving others wrong. It's about becoming someone you can finally be proud of. That's how a broken kid turned his pain into purpose. That's how a homeless boy built an empire. And if I could do it, so can you. The first time they saw me again, it was on TV. A short news segment. Local entrepreneur donates $1 million to build youth shelter. My face flashed across the screen for 5 seconds, but that was enough. My mother's hands trembled as she held the remote. My father froze mid-sentence. And in that silence, everything they'd said to me, every insult, every dismissal, every "you'll never be anything," came back to haunt them. But this story didn't start there. It started the day I stopped trying to prove them wrong, and started trying to prove myself right. After years of sleeping in cars, working 2 jobs, eating cheap noodles, and failing more times than I could count, something inside me shifted. I realized success wasn't a single moment, it was survival stacked on survival. And if I could survive one more day, one more setback, one more heartbreak, then maybe, just maybe, I'd make it. I stopped chasing perfection. I started chasing progress. Every morning I woke up before sunrise, ran 3 miles, and repeated one phrase. No one's coming to save you. You are the rescue. Those words built my spine stronger than any encouragement could have. Because when you grow up being told you're worthless, the greatest revenge isn't shouting back. It's building silently until the world has to listen. My first big break came at 23. I'd saved every spare dollar from my night shift at a warehouse and used it to start a small online business. Flipping used phones I repaired myself. I'd learned from YouTube tutorials, scavenged broken devices, fixed them, and sold them online. It wasn't glamorous. My office was a corner of a rented basement, lit by a single lamp. But within months I was making more than I ever had in my life. And yet, I told no one. Not because I wanted to hide my success, but because I wanted to protect it. Dreams are fragile in their early stages. The wrong words can kill them faster than failure ever could. By 26, that small business had turned into a company, one that employed 20 people, some of whom came from the same broken backgrounds I did. I made it a rule. We don't just hire skills, we hire hunger. If someone had fire in their eyes, even if they had no degree or experience, I'd give them a chance. Because I remembered exactly how it felt to be that kid no one believed in. Then, one night, I got a message request on social media. The name on the screen froze me in place. The message was short. "We saw what you've done. We're proud of you. Maybe we could talk." I stared at those words for a long time. 5 years earlier, those same hands had slammed the door in my face. 5 years earlier, those same voices told me I'd never make it. Now they wanted to talk. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, but because I didn't know what to say. Forgiveness is complicated when the wounds still ache. A month later, I was invited to speak at a local event, a charity gala for underprivileged youth. When I walked onto the stage wearing a suit I never thought I'd own, I saw them sitting in the front row. My parents. They looked smaller somehow. Older. Quieter. My mother's eyes glistened when she saw me. My father tried to smile, but his guilt showed through every wrinkle. I took a deep breath and spoke to the crowd. When I was 18, I was told I'd never amount to anything, I began. I was thrown out of my own home. I slept on park benches, washed dishes, fixed broken phones, and ate 1 meal a day for years. But you know what? Every person who ever doubted me taught me something. They taught me that belief doesn't have to come from others. It can come from you. The audience went quiet. You could hear the sound of glasses being set down, the quiet sniffles from the back. My voice didn't shake, it burned. If you're sitting here thinking you're not enough, remember the world doesn't decide your value. You do. You don't need permission to start rebuilding your life. You just need the courage to begin. When I finished, the crowd stood and clapped. But all I could see were my parents, standing too, crying quietly. After the event, they approached me. For a second, it felt like I was 18 again, lost, small, waiting for their approval. But this time I didn't need it. My father spoke first. "Son, we were wrong." Those 4 words hit harder than any insult ever did. Not because I needed to hear them, but because it took them years to understand what I'd known all along. Sometimes family isn't who gives you life. It's who helps you live it. We sat in silence for a while. My mom reached for my hand and whispered, "We didn't know how strong you really were." And I told her the truth. "Neither did I. You helped me find out." That night as I drove home, I realized something powerful. Revenge feels good, but growth feels better. Because when you rise without hate in your heart, your success becomes more than payback. It becomes proof. Years later, I built a foundation for kids who've been thrown out, doubted, or told they're worthless. Every time one of them walks through those doors, I see a younger version of myself, scared, lost, but ready to fight. We teach them the same lesson life taught me. Your pain isn't your prison. It's your fuel. One day during a quiet afternoon at the foundation, a young boy came up to me. He was about 17, skinny, wearing a hoodie too big for him. He looked at me with nervous eyes and asked, "Mister, do you ever forgive people who hurt you?" I smiled, remembering my father's shaking voice that night. "Yes," I said, "because holding on to hate keeps you where they left you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget, it means you're free." The boy nodded slowly as if those words weighed heavy but made sense. He smiled, the same smile I once forced myself to wear when everything hurt. That moment reminded me why I started all of this. Why I kept going when everyone said stop. Why I turned pain into purpose. And now, whenever people ask me how I made it, I tell them this. I didn't make it despite being thrown out. I made it because I was thrown out. Because the day they closed the door on me, I stopped waiting for someone else to open one, and built my own. That's the real story. Not about revenge. Not about proving anyone wrong. But about realizing that sometimes the hardest goodbyes are what make room for the person you were always meant to become.